Greetings and blessings, family. One love. What's up? Jesse here. I'm blessed today
Hey,
to be joined by my friend Owen. Thank you for coming, Owen.
my pleasure to be here. Very jolly and joyfully appreciating you inviting me to be here. Thank you, Jesse. Lovely to connect with you and be here today with everybody, especially you.
Yeah, so those of you who don't know Owen, he's a health and relationship coach, or kind of a, what did you call yourself, life coach, or
Yeah, I call myself all sorts of stuff. Clarity coach, usually like life coach, relationship coach, and also like a detoxification expert or helping with so you call myself that. Even just like helping health coach as well. Yeah, mixture of all those stuff: body, mind, spirit, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, and parenting. Because I have 3 kids,
yeah.
so yeah, just working on the whole package together. You know yourself. I think you're in the same boat.
Yeah, that's why, I was looking forward to this conversation. And Owen and I have been friends for, I don't know, maybe like 3 or 4 years now through
Yeah.
Facebook. And I always appreciate his posts and his just cheerfulness and his tips of self-honoring and how to navigate these things. And so wanted to have Owen on today just to share his journey of moving into raw food, and his emphasis and focus on relationship and healing that, and the importance of that, and moving into the realms of breatharianism and liquidarianism, and how to make all these interchanges and navigate them in the context of family, parenthood, and partnership and all that stuff. So um, at any rate, let uh, so how did you get how did this all start for you, Owen? Or what's your give me share with me a little bit of your background, of how you grew up and how everything, what shifted for you, and what that was
Yeah.
like.
Yeah, great question. Thanks for the introduction. Appreciate that. And yeah, like right now I'm 42 years young, so it's a pretty good year because if you turn it around, when I was 24, that's when it all started for me in terms of my conscious healing journey. I discovered through reading a book on um what's it called, ethics. For some reason I decided to order some book, and I read it like on the internet, and I got a book on ethics, and that drew me to vivisection because I didn't know what that word meant. So then I discovered on the internet what vivisection is, which is like it's basically experimenting on animals, like which didn't I wasn't very happy what I saw on the internet. I saw it and opened up a whole book, a whole can of worms, so to speak, and I saw like animal cruelty, and on the internet, a good few hours, I learned what vivisection was, which, like I said, was very unpleasant for animals. And after watching a few hours of animal cruelty and factory farming and this, that, and the other, I realized, whoa, this is like very sad and torturous and horrendous. So that was the beginning. And that's when I became vegetarian overnight. I threw away the chicken I had in the fridge, I believe. I didn't, my mom was supposed to visit the next day. I was going to cook for both of us, but I just figured out, like, what's the ethical thing? It would be better to eat it, and like then the animal doesn't go to waste, or would that be continuing supporting a habit with both of us and not really leading by example of how I'm now feeling? So in the end, I just thought it's better to discard that, and we didn't eat it. So basically, I switched to vegan overnight, almost almost fully vegan, with the exception of, so Monday to Saturday I was all vegan, and on a Sunday I'd have two small organic yogurts from the Sunday market, so two dairy yogurts. And for 3 months that went on until over those 3 months, I learned more about veganism and stuff. I also joined an animal rights activist group where people were protesting in Dublin, in Ireland, where I'm from. So after those 3 months, I just switched to all raw vegan diet, which I did for 7 months, which I gave up because of the emotional, mental struggle and strain. So I went back to cooked vegan. But the reason why I gave up the dairy yogurts, even though it was organic, was because it didn't ring through with what I discovered on my own value system, my own ethics and philosophy, which was not to be using others or exploiting them or gaining one up over the innocent, weak, defenseless, or voiceless. I didn't want to, I wanted to use my power, like with power comes responsibility, or with great power comes great responsibility. And my power of knowledge and physical power and wisdom, I didn't want to exploit the defenseless or innocent or poor. So like I found out that the dairy industry is basically just as good as having meat, except you're not literally truly having the dead animal, but you're basically contributing to animals becoming dead or being killed. Because I found out whole families of animals are broken up through the dairy industry. The mother and father are separated, probably a long time before the baby's born, and then the brothers or sisters are separated, and the children are separated from the parents too. The the baby boys are sold off to fatten up and meat up for the industry, and then the females are kept for only for the production of milk, and then they're impregnated against their will and without consent. And for me, consent is very important for like children, you know, for adults, for animals. Like we don't be living with double standards. I learned about double standards where like, is it okay that I do this to you? Like I lie, rob, or hurt you without your consent, or I'm dishonest towards you, or I take your stuff, or like, I rob you of something, or I captivate you or enslave you, or I take your stuff at your loss, but to my gain. But it's not okay if you do any of that sort of stuff to me or my family, you know? Would it be okay if someone came and hurt or took away my pets? But it's okay. I say I love animals, but yet I contribute to gigantic, endless suffering of parent cows and the breakup of families with brothers and sisters and children leaving from their parents, etc., etc., etc. And then also forced impregnation yearly, which leads to a lot of sadness and suffering and a wearing out of the female young adolescent, like they're impregnated at the youngest age. So that'd be the equivalent of like 12, 13, 14-year-old humans being impregnated every year. And that's very tiring to produce a baby. And producing milk is very tiring too. Like you know from like Chinese traditional medicine, like the concepts of Jing, Qi, and Shen, we use up great amounts of our vital force, our vital essence, our longevity, Jing, and producing seminal fluid as like our sexual life force as a man. And for women, it's the big chunks which supposed to happen only occasionally or sometimes in your lifetime. Not like men can be more like here, there, and everywhere releasing our sexual fluid, but for women, it's like it's their producing a baby and building that and the life force and nutrients it requires to build that, and production of regular milk while you're breastfeeding. So that leads to the wear and tear of an animal, a mother who's already lost its babies typically, because the milk's supposed to be there for the babies. Their baby's been taken away, and it's the same fate that's going to happen to them, except if it's a female, and if it's a male, it's going to be killed early for the meat industry. But so what happens is then that female is killed at a very young age because they become exhausted, tired, and sick from over exploitation and over usage. So that just like didn't ring good with me, my heart and my soul, like so to speak, like my soul, but didn't ring true deep down. I just felt like that was like definitely not fair. I've had cats. At that stage, I didn't have any children. Now I have children, and I'd never want anybody to hurt my children, do anything even in the same world as anything likely to that to them. Nobody would. So, and nobody would like their pets to be hurt. So why is it okay that an animal that isn't their pet, that doesn't like purr on our lap and make us feel all happy and cozy, that we're gaining? I feel now, and I felt sort of maybe then, like it's a bit like narcissistic. It's all about you. It's what we can get, what we can gain. So if an animal doesn't purr on us and lick us and make us feel happy when we're sad, or just like bring a smile to our face, then they can be discarded, like impregnated against their consent, or children taken away. All of this stuff is okay, or they can be killed and hurt and put in a cage, or even just kept on a farm and killed humanely, which I don't think humanely exists, because no one would like us or our pets or our children to be killed humanely against our consent. So it's again double standards. I don't think humane killing again non-consensually is ever like fair. So for all of these purposes, I decided to become like eat a vegan diet and maintain a vegan philosophy. I don't like to say personally like too much to become a vegan, because not like I'm becoming anything particular. I only have values that are my values and standards, my ethics. And we all have to make up our own, like value, live by our own ethics, values, and standards. So everybody makes up their own choice. Like Shakespeare said, nothing is good or bad, only thinking makes it so. So like from a spiritual grandest perspective, God source universe gave us free will. So everything is there for the taking or for the doing, for the thinking. Every choice is allowed, permitted. But that doesn't, so nothing is good or bad. So we make what's good or bad for us through our thinking, which is our mind, our perception, our values, our perspective, and how we see things, our outlook, so we decide what's good or bad or right or wrong for us and for others in every aspect of life. So we have to live by that. And if we break what's right for us, then we're betraying our own ethics and standards, and then we may feel like guilt or shame, which are signs that maybe we broke our own little code. And everybody like goes through little certain mishaps and ups and downs and like making mistakes in life. And that's the way we learn. So like every child and every adult, we all have a certain age around consciousness, so to speak. We're at a particular maturation or maturity level, even as an adult, in terms of our consciousness. So we are allowed to make mistakes. Others are allowed to make mistakes, but at the same time, some things are far more important or greater than others. For example, through many religions and spiritual philosophies, they say rocks have a consciousness, plants have a consciousness, animals and humans have a consciousness. We're all like alive to a certain degree. So, but is it as bad to throw a rock on the ground than to kill someone else's pet, or for someone to kill your pet, or to hurt like somebody in your family, or like just a human in general? So, while it's a scale, it is a scale. They're not necessarily the exact same thing. For example, like taking a leaf off a plant, even though they may be able to sense that, they may have a trigger or warning system saying, hey, someone's coming to maybe like take off part of my leaf or part of my branch, or maybe even they uprooted like a neighboring plant. Plants have that system. I don't think personally that it's as deep or prolonged as suffering or pain, physically, mentally, or emotionally, or socially, than it is for a very sophisticated conscious animal or human who have very advanced vertebrate systems, spinal cord and brain, and pain receptors as mammals. And they say animals have like the intelligence or cleverness of maybe up to the age of 7 or 7-year-old or 5-year-old child, or even greater, depending of which animal you're comparing to. So they're social creatures like elephants, maybe dolphins, and whales and primates have a very
High
sophisticated
intelligence.
intelligence and social systems. But we know already from our pets like dogs or cats that they also are they're like they're like people in many ways. They have their
Rated
personality,
too. Yeah.
they have their like traits. They love things, they like things, they don't like some other things. They definitely don't want to like be in pain or hurt. They'll look for nurturing if in pain. They have like needs as animals, much similar to the list of needs as a human has. So I think there's a great overlap and similarity between animals and humans and what they have in common, compared to, let's say, the pain or hurt a stone or a rock, or even a tree or a spinach plant might have. So that's just like, I know a lot of people like say that, like, well, what about that? Like, you're hurting this. So I feel there's a difference between if we're surviving in Alaska and we've been starving for like a few weeks or 2 or 3 weeks or longer or whatever, a few days, and we're running out of energy and we feel our life's on the line. I feel that's a different story when we have a choice to hurt or a choice not to hurt or kill. Because a lot of us would agree, like, listen, if you're going to die, like maybe if you're starving in the wilderness of Alaska or the forest of Siberia or whatnot, then maybe then it's more ethically okay to kill because it's an exception. It's something you're kind of forced into. You don't have any other choices. But when it comes to just living in society as a whole, I feel like we have a million choices, even ones healthier and more aligned with our potentially with our value system. If we're not to be hypocrites or double standards, we'd agree that maybe then we have a choice and we don't need to kill as much as we would if we're surviving in the wilderness. So I
I,
thought about
I
all
th-
these things throughout the years. So yeah.
yeah, I totally agree. It brings to mind just my own like Buddhist values and uh, the whole idea of ahimsa and nonviolence, and that if anything, as human beings and beings of higher consciousness, we should be putting benefit in the world and aiding other sentient beings and showing compassion and
Yeah.
wisdom and the care and nurturing of all life, you know. And
Yeah.
that was a major point for me as well. But there was also the health aspect of I was
Yeah.
actually just personally facing uh, physical health problems that switching over to raw immediately cleared up. So, did you have
Me
a
too.
similar situation with your physical health beyond
Big time. Yeah, I have
your
huge cat like.
spiritual and ethical? Yeah,
Yeah, big
go
time. I'll
ahead.
get into that in a second. I guess the last thing I want to say in the previous topic is one time I made a video around like 6 years ago, and the title was Apex Predator or Apex Nurturer.
Hmm.
With this
Yeah.
great power, we can choose to nurture and build and
Well,
uplift and enrich and empower or strip, take away
that
and hurt and inflict pain and suffering and division of and disconnection of families, you know? Because when we
that
affect one loved one, we affect those that love that one that we're affecting. So we all have, even from a spiritual perspective, only with humans, we cause a ripple effect, even negating the whole animal thing. So my
mhm,
ethics aren't just towards animals. I'm very in favor and love people and humans. It even dates back to when I was in school. I lost all of my friends because I took compassion on one boy when I was let's say what age was I? I was 14, the second year of high school or secondary school as it's called in Ireland. One boy was being bullied and another boy was being a loner. They're basically being like mentally, emotionally hurt, upset, like abused. One of them, he was dead later that they were suicidal because it deeply pains people to be left out or hurt or ignored or bullied, like verbally,
and
emotionally,
shamed
physically.
and
And
yeah,
I just didn't, even at that young age of 14, I just couldn't leave them to be like perpetrated upon. And I even left the vegan like animal rights activist group because they were being too unfriendly towards the humans.
yeah, yeah,
I tried to invite them to
totally.
change, be more loving and compassionate to humans because forgive them for they don't know what to do. So let's try and kindly like spread the word of like education and knowledge and wisdom, you know?
That's the
So
only way it's gonna spread. It's not gonna come through force. You know,
yeah.
a man convinced against its will is of the same opinion still. So
Yeah. I never heard that one. I like that, yeah. So yeah, but in my childhood, getting back to that question, like I kind of like I had a fair bit of childhood trauma. Like you know yourself, I think we most of us do have but some
yeah,
much more than
pretty
others,
much
of
every.
course. I know people who've had definitely a lot less, and I know people like close to me who've had a lot more.
Mhm,
So, but I did have significant amounts that definitely affected me in my life and my mental emotional well-being. And it was actually
yeah,
my mental and emotional well-being that led to my physical downfall. Just shortly before I learned about veganism, I learned about self-healing, and that all happened at the age of 24, which is the opposite of my age now, 42. So, um, yeah, from the age of 20 to 24, I lost my health in very intense sort of at the time it seemed like a catastrophic like loss of my health. I went from level like 10 fitness, being very fit, strong, and extremely physically active outside all my life, to losing it all like by being fanatical. And my idea was like mind over matter, like no gain, no pain. It was very sort of macho and immature
hmm,
compared to where I am now at least. And it just led to extreme like completely being not connected to my body and over exercising and doing like tons of exercise. Like I was already doing loads and I had only 5% body fat. I had the body fat of a professional athlete. And almost like I was even thinking of entering like bodybuilding contest. I was so like so trim and slim, you know. But uh, yeah, I really burnt in my adrenals big time. I also happen to
hmm,
have two general operations that I didn't even really need. And then I met my first girlfriend when I was 21 and I had like excessive sexual
hmm.
activity. So that all of that combined, I was just even before the whole operations and sexual activity, I was in a really, really bad place physically, like level one energy. I couldn't even do the shopping properly. I couldn't shop far, walk far, I couldn't walk up big hills or mountains properly. I couldn't even carry back all my shopping that I wanted to buy. So it
It,
went from a very active outside life to a very very inactive inside life. And also inwardly, I was inwardly be active So after 4 years of misery and like just feeling sad and alone, a loss of, I just, I just wasn't, for around from the age of 20 to 21 and a half before I met my first girlfriend, I didn't really want to live too much anymore, but I didn't want to take my own life because I was close to my mom and I had a glimmer of hope that maybe things would change in the future, even though no idea how. So I was rock bottom. And after my first girlfriend and me broke too, we lasted for a year and 3 quarters. Up to the age of 24, I had a lot of mental and emotional anguish, hopelessness, despair, physically not well. I couldn't lead the life that I wanted. It was sort of stripped away from me. I feel it was all spiritually perfect, but at times it was physically harrowing. And I was very lost and desperate and hopeless, and I wasn't very happy. And my mind was always racing to the past and the future. So I lived in a lot of like never in the now, never to be honest. And when I first learned about at the age of 24, spirituality and raw food and veganism, I learned it all at the same year. Things shifted hugely. And I thought it was
Hmm.
the end. I thought it had arrived, but really and truly, it was just the beginning. So that
Hmm.
was funny that I learned on later on in life as more things started coming along. That, oh, that wasn't the end. That was just the beginning. So now it's been 18 years later. I've been on the path of raw foods, veganism, cooked veganism as well, and also spirituality and healing oneself from past trauma and triggers and shadow work and conscious living, conscious everything, conscious parenting, just healing, stemming with healing yourself. And my idea is to help others become their greatest version that they wish and choose to become, just like I've had people help me or mentor me and support me lovingly and compassionately, and just for me to be as a human to human and soul to soul. So that's where I'm at the moment. I'm still on my journey
Awesome.
like you.
Awesome, Owen. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing all that. There's so many like corollaries to my own journey, just, you know, really wanting to be of benefit to the world and uh, not, I remember there's a hip hop song I used to like, and uh, it, one of the lines was, "Are you part of the problem or are you part of the solution? What's your
Mm,
contribution to life?" And I remember just thinking about that a lot. When you're a young man, you're still trying to understand yourself and what your purpose is in the world, and then we all are enculturated to uh, our pleasure being just food, sex, beer, drugs, what
yeah.
have you, not really have being taught the proper skills of uh, mindfulness and learning about your inner world and how to communicate emotions,
Mm,
appropriately and all that stuff, and all the uh, hurt that is perpetuated throughout the culture that way, as well as through conventional agriculture, and particularly conventional animal agriculture. you know and my whole journey with um, permaculture has been amazing in that, because
yeah.
it's so incredible to see what you mentioned that thing of being a sort of a nurturer, a top nurturer species instead of an apex predator, an apex nurturer. I like that idea,
Yeah.
because
Me
even the
too.
word husband etymologically is connected with man's ability to nurture life, like farm life, animal life, family, what have you. So that's like the divine masculine embodied is like kind of, I'm sure you're aware of Green Man being in Ireland, that whole idea of Green Man. You know about Green Man, Owen?
Don't think so. No, no.
No. So Green Man is like this Celtic uh, masculine god of fertility. He's like the sun
Ooh,
coming back in the spring and bringing nurturing all the life back into being. That's associated
yeah.
with Green Man, and he Green Man and like Jack Frost fight for sovereignty between winter and summer. You know, and it's this fun thing. I'm actually partly Irish on my dad's side. I'm Scotch Irish and French.
Wow.
So I share
Lovely. Yeah.
share ancestry in Ireland and some connection with the culture. So
Ah,
that's really
lovely.
cool. But
Yeah, I like the way you share these type of things. I've seen you share some of these things in the past. what you just mentioned there. So yeah, I like that. Yeah, I love that you come from, like, the background of wishing to be more of an apex nurturer, like just using our power in that regard. I love your path that yourself on liquidarianism and, like, um, ahisma, or like veganism, and just overall, like, Buddhism philosophy and kindness and compassion. When I was a teenager, actually, even before I so after I was helping those two kids and I wanted to step beside them, and I lost all my group of friends as a result, and I spent the next many years up to the finishing of high school, up to the age of 18. I spent all those years from the age of 14 to 18, like, just feeling very still, sad, and out of place and lonely in school, because I never became good friends with either of those two kids. And they were slightly interspaced, like, throughout different years between the age of 14 and 16, maybe. So the first one was 14, and then my second kid my age in my class was maybe when I was 16. But I wasn't really close friends with them, so I had a lot of trauma from childhood related to, like, feeling very, 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 like, sad and vulnerable and insecure, because my dad was, physically speaking, he was a bully or a narcissist. Like, he was very, very, he scared the whole family, and two of the kids had stutters or stammers developing, and a lot of anxiety and fear in the house. And he was like the controller, the dominant figure. And yeah, I was the youngest and the closest to my mom, or I was the youngest, so my mom kept me under her wings as much as she could. And I've blocked out 99.999% of my childhood memories before the age of 8. And the only
My
two
God.
memories I have of my dad was running, one hiding on him in fear, one was running from him back to my mum in the living room, and the other one was him brushing my teeth very vigorously. So I guess what I'm sort of pointing at is, like, I understand what it means to have trauma, and I help people to navigate through and help them to heal with their trauma. And
Mhm.
even I learning about, like, CPTSD, like, complex or childhood PTSD, which is like,
Yeah,
we're all on the scale of that, and some are on very heavy levels of, like, horrific trauma and a very miserable, sad and unsafe, scary
yeah,
childhood. I know people close to me at that, and it takes a long time and a lot of hard work and consistent effort to heal from very severe CPTSD slash very severe childhood trauma. So it's
yeah. I
taken me a
believe.
long time. I've been 18 years on the journey of healing that too, outside the whole diet thing. Um, but yeah, um,
Yeah,
that's kind of like my background.
my son has been dealing with complex PTSD, and he had this. I don't want to get too into it just for his, uh, you know, just privacy. Uh,
Yeah,
but uh, he's got neurological disease. He had some issues go down with having his wisdom teeth pulled, and didn't really take care of him. And was at that age where he just wasn't good at that, and kind of rebellious and stuff, and got into some other stuff that, you know, just whatever the case, these things compounded, you know, and
yeah,
he had a very traumatic time for a while. He's doing so much better now, and I'm really grateful. But it caused me to take a greater look at my traumas and stuff, because there were times, where I was trying to protect him and protect, our property and our family, and I would get too big with anger, to try to control the situation. And looking back, my dad would spank us. It was very rare, but when you did, it was a very frightening sort of experience.
mm,
And I think, those are some of the small and kind of uh, things that become traumatic. There's other things that we perceive as children that aren't even really a part of the situation. There's really severe things that happen to some people, things they see, death, and or like children in Africa being soldiers, or that's like extreme
yeah.
examples.
That's on the highest
But,
scale. Yeah,
but
or
across,
yeah,
I think across the world, across culture, there's like this, sort of genetic trauma, or sort of familial trauma. And we also get our gifts from our ancestors, ancestor trauma. But
Yeah.
it ties into me to the ideas of Buddhism, of samsara and karma, and habit energy. And when we're, eating meat and killing and being self-serving and warring or being controlling and full of anger, and we want the world to be a beautiful place of peace and gentleness, and we really have to embody that. And going through the traumas and learning through our own traumas gives us, like you said, a platform that we can help other people, because you can be like, I've been there, I've gone through this. And I think that what you're doing is extremely valuable, because people can be extremely healthy and then have like the emotional uh, trauma, relationship difficulties, not really understanding why, and so their overall life and wellness too is impacted by well-being. So it's awesome that you're doing all that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And same with you. I reciprocate back to you too. And it's much more complicated to work with the very subtle energies of like our thoughts and emotions, and as well as to see our knee-jerk automatic instant reactions to people, which
Hmm.
typically we're kind of wired not to really want to look at, because sometimes we don't feel powerful enough to to cope with what we see, or admit that we can't change of just like mistakes or flaws or weaknesses within us, or at least so-called flaws or weaknesses and errors within us. So a lot of the time, like our own personal shame or feeling of powerlessness will come up, and where we're just not ready or wanting to change. And a lot of the time we don't want to like appear small or like erroneous or flawed, because it so-called hurts our ego. We don't like look bad to others, and how people perceive us is very important to us, etc., etc., etc. So yeah, and I'm definitely dealing with our triggers on knee-jerk, automatic, emotional, mental, and verbal and physical reactions. That's definitely a very tricky thing. I've had like a lot of experience in that, like for quite a long time now. Both what I see in others and in my relationships, as well as myself. It is humbling to look at ourselves, because, like I kind of said, the human condition kind of wants to feel like we're amazing or like lofty and fantastic.
Hmm.
We're incredible. Like, look at us, look at me. Like, I don't slip or fall or make mistakes, but to admit or to acknowledge or to share
Hmm.
that we've a lot of baggage or like unhealed trauma, or just like we act up and act out and like get into all sorts of like stuff in our
Hmm.
life or relationships, or to even that publicly as public figures to a certain degree, or even just simply to the person in front of us, our partner or relationship, or mom and our dad or our child, or whatever the case may be. Especially with our relationships, typically it is our immediate like like partner or husband or wife. It can be very, very hard to sort of say sorry, or for depending on the person, or admit we're wrong, and to literally make like proper efforts and commitments, verbal commitments, and commitment to ourselves to learn and do things differently and change for the better, of more peace, harmony, and feeling of safety and trust between people. Yeah, it can be
Yeah,
very,
when you're
very, very,
doing
very tricky.
when you do that for yourself, you're really doing it for all beings, because if you're doing what it takes to be self-loving and be kind and be, in your center, then that you're encouraging that in the world, and you're encouraging other people, releasing them from your projections or desires of what you'd like them to do for you, to just
Yeah,
be as they are, and just showing them loving kindness, and praying for compassion. I
yeah,
love this whole idea in Buddhism of like, if you're in an argument, just let the other person win, you know,
yeah.
like put
That's nice.
aside this need, and it's better to be kind than it is to be right, you know, to
Yeah,
practice kindness is, and emanate that with everything you do, and hold that intention. And then everything, there's all this talk of manifestation and the alchemical art of manifestation through vibration and concentration and all this stuff. But really, if you concentrate on the motivation of helping all beings, that includes you, includes the others, because what tends to happen is our focus goes in on we tend to be self-cherishing. We tend to look at what's good for us, what's going to make
Yeah,
us happy. And really,
yeah,
if we turn some of our attention, not all of it, but some of it, toward after we give ourselves enough loving attention, you sort of well up and you want to help others, and you start to turn to them, and you actually get more happiness and benefit through helping other people than you do oftentimes, especially if you're too much focusing on just your own well-being and benefit. So the balance there is really seems to be extremely tricky, you know and takes lifetime of practice to like
yeah,
become more skillful with. But it's something that I think is like at
yeah,
the core of uh, the whole. What I think you're doing in the work that you do in helping people heal from trauma and do the self work is that I think that's ultimately what it's going to take to change and reshape the world into a you know uh, kind, loving, a place free of war, a place with a clean environment, a place where people are supported. You know, um, that all of that is going to take developing that in ourselves and spreading that as individuals, not looking for an outside source to like change and fix these things for us, but to take ownership of our health, our mental health, our land, our families, our communities. And then if we all just do that, you know, we'll have world peace. I would think, like Buddha says, it actually, if we could just make one person happy and that was ourselves, and if everyone just did that, we would have world peace. You know,
yeah.
uh,
I, I
just
I like the way you said that. Yeah,
just
there's
starting
a
at
lot of truth
home.
to that. Mm.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, you go ahead. I like what you're saying. It
No,
starts in the
I'd
home.
finish after you.
Are
Oh,
you sure?
yeah,
Yeah, it
yeah.
starts in the home. I agree. It starts like with you in the home, and like these little micro bubbles, and everybody has a family, and then the more families who, starting with the individuals in the family, they can have peace and love in their heart and kindness and heal themselves. Then the world obviously will become little by little, many millions of clusters of families and people grow into like loving kindness and peace. But it does start like what you said with healing ourselves, because and also like the way the Buddha said, um if we can make ourselves happy, and how we heal ourselves and make ourselves happy so we can have this world peace is by learning about ourselves. There's a saying, to know others is wise, but to know yourself is enlightened. And just like the way Eli Tom Elamine says, like just to bring it down to a very like grounded, practical level, to know yourself takes time, and like I'm learning like more even now, still after 18 years. Like I was learning recently about the 68 characteristics of um what's it called all the 68 needs of a human being,
Hmm.
as well as another video, 60 characteristics of CPTSD, like childhood trauma, like complex trauma, PTSD. But like the 68 needs of a human being, it's a lot. And if we need to have like a lot of these characteristics satisfied and tick the box and fulfilled, so therefore ultimately we can be happy and content on a regular routine basis. But if we are missing a lot or some of these, or some of the most important ones in a very big way, then we won't be happy, like the Buddha says. And if we don't have our fountain fulfilled, how can we share excess to others? So, like
Hmm.
that little statement about making ourselves happy, there's a very big, deep background to how can we truly do that. Because you look into the world, and Buddha knew this, and we know this, and people watching this know this. So many of us aren't happy, or we struggle with ongoing happiness. But see, we need to also learn about our needs that will make us happy. So just 68 of them I was learning from a guy called Tim Fletcher. I don't know if you've seen that or not. You know him or that video?
Not yet. No.
Excellent video. Like personally, it's one of my favorite videos for the last few years almost, or like in the last
Mm,
many seasons. It's
hmm.
but yeah, getting back to what you said, like about like helping others, and ultimately, if we help ourselves, we help others, and we help others, we help ourselves. There's a nice quotation I used to put underneath like all my YouTube videos, which I have 2,600 of now in the last 12 years almost. I love the
Wow.
videos. They've been
Wow.
verbal. Is one of them is like we rise by lifting others. Because you usually think if
Yeah.
you're lifting others, like you go underneath, you push them up, but then it's like a play in words. We rise by lifting others. So it's almost like we levitate and go up too.
They talk about
Um,
that in the law of one, that, uh, we're all, everything in creation is moving toward a greater state of perfection. And, but there is like essentially consciousness incarnate in samsara is trying to do the heavy lifting of creation, moving closer to perfection. And that we can get there on our own. We can climb and claw our way to the top and step on people, and we can we can do it, that way, and still, uh, I don't know how anyone could do that and actually feel good about themselves, but you can make it,
yeah,
so to speak. But if everyone works to help themselves and each other, then everybody's lifting simultaneously. And that
yeah,
what you know that whole thing of like, if everybody just starts doing this for themselves and in their families, and there's also the hundredth monkey aspect, that there seems to be some sort of noetic connection in something in the noosphere of the collective consciousness of human beings, and just connected with all beings, but also in our own sort of human collective. uh, when people start doing stuff more, it just starts to entrain more, culturally, uh, without even there being a point of connection for the sharing of the new way or the new information or whatever.
mm,
There starts to People just start to wake up to it because of this thing of we're beings of frequency and energy, and everything is, and your brain and your DNA and
yeah,
your pineal gland and everything is like a Wi-Fi transmitter receiver, and we're sending and sharing thoughts, with the plants and the animals and
yeah,
the other people. And so the more we can focus our minds on just that loving vibe, warm heart, the more we start to actually create that in the world. So yeah, good stuff.
lovely. Yeah, yeah, lovely.
Are
Okay,
you
did you have a flashlight for
are you familiar with human design, Owen?
me? Sorry,
Are you familiar with human design?
human design?
Yeah,
No, in that particular phrase, I don't think so. No,
or the Enneagram? You know about the Enneagram?
I the Enneagram. I've heard of it.
Yeah,
Not
both of
familiar.
those I find to be really great tools of self knowledge, as well as acceptance and understanding one another in relationship, because it goes into the, we're all the same, but we all have also so many subtle differences that make our experiences so completely different. I think, our astrological, sign plays a massive part. I mean, the way your environment was growing up, your genealogical history, your experiences, like so many things that shape us, um,
Yeah,
and then, and it's kind of like you alluded to, all of us are extremely malleable until like age
yeah,
7, and we really take on the imprinting of the environment and the culture around us and the people around us. And then most of us spend the rest of our lives trying to solve those things. And to me, that's a big part of what the breatharian path is like doing all this work on meditation, learning about your own individual uniqueness, your own unique health needs as you grow. That
yeah,
you shouldn't necessarily jump straight to raw foodist or straight to liquidarian or straight to breatharian. That there's a process and a phase, that it should be loving. And one of those things that I wanted to talk about with you is your journey, because I know it's been a thing for me and many others where we've talked a little bit about before, but like I was the one in the family who went full on 100% raw, and has been doing that now for 16 years or whatever. And you know and the way that changed my relationships with like my overall family, like with culture and doing stuff, going out
Yeah.
with people, and you know familial situations. And how has your journey been with respect to like your own relationship, as much as you feel comfortable sharing, how much, what has that been like for you?
And my overall relationships, my family, friends, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah, as you've been changing and moving more into this like connection with yourself and your health, mental and physical.
Sorry, I missed that last part. Say it again.
I said just how that journey has been for you with respect to your needing to make your health and sort of inner changes. uh, did you find it affected relationships?
Yeah, definitely. You know, when I became like very sort of not well or like sick when I was 20, I couldn't handle alcohol anymore, so I had to give up alcohol. I just felt tired and antisocial, wanted to go home and rest. I was already like burnt out and tired, and my adrenals were spent. So then when I switched to more like vegan diet overall, I wanted to try and change everybody. Obviously, as most people do, I want to try and tell the good news, what I discovered, like of these things behind the scenes. And I was trying to like like hopefully change people, but to have loving kindness and compassion. And then I discovered a lot of people are reluctant, and I was like totally ready and open to like switch, because I found out other people, when I tell them as much as I could, or they're as much as they'd be willing to listen, and they found out they didn't really want to find out as much as I found out, or didn't want to hear as much as I wanted to know. And then they didn't really want to change like I wanted to change. So it was upsetting and disheartening, obviously, for sure. I think pretty much everyone can relate to that. But um, I kind of like for some reason, like over the many years, like the most of my friends would happen to eat a plant-based diet, at least mostly, maybe not all vegan or all plant-based diet, but they, for the most part, they don't want to be like deliberate regular consumers of things that they may believe or aware of that it contains maybe a lot of suffering or cruelty. So I've tended to just, I guess, like I've tended to gravitate without really like making a plan about it, like, hey, you can't be my friend this way or this way, this way or that way. I tend to gravitate. My friends would be most like pretty much all like plant-based or vegan for the most part, like mostly or all, with the intention to be mostly or all, like that type of idea. Someone much more passionate and more knowledgeable and more open like me, but and some of them more like in the middle or like at the side, and like just sort of to do for health reasons potentially, or partially for like the welfare of other beings reasons. Because for me, ethics is also containing not just to humans or animals, but also to Mother Earth. Like I think there's ethical standards and values to like not dumping in Mother Nature, polluting the waters, putting chemicals all over the place. So we can like care in a multitude of different ways to different things, and caring for plants as well. Like we can try and respect all of that. And I love and love, I love adult humans. I love children. I love animals. I love Gaia. I love everything. So then in my family, someone like who was really close, like didn't really want to change much. They'd still eat omnivore. Maybe they'd eat more vegetarian or vegan, because they'd learn about the health reasons. But I think a lot of people just aren't really ready to like see the ethics of it, or like just the
Got
hurt
to
or
give
pain.
got, got to give people room to grow that way and not be judging on them like a lot of people do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So for a while, like probably most people, like when we're excited or enthusiastic, sometimes it can come across or can be laced with judgment too, or it can definitely come across as pressure,
Yeah.
pressure and control from others, and that can definitely harm relationships. And getting back to what you were saying earlier, I really like to try and give people like tools. There's one thing I've been also learning is like you may be with this age and I might be this age, but we all have the age at which we really are is based on our consciousness, our maturity, and our toolbox. So, like, you might be like a 40-year-old with a toolbox of a 20-year-old or a 15-year-old, whereas somebody could be, like 35 with a toolbox of a 40-year-old or like a 35-year-old. So that's like having tools that can practically help us in life. I try and empower people with like various tools that they can implement and practice in their actual practical like day-to-day life. And one of them is what I liked you saying about like losing the if you're having an argument to deliberately lose. I love that. It's very good in many ways. And I do encourage us to speak our truth, but I think it's unwise to speak our truth at a bad moment when people aren't ready or wanting to listen, and it's just going to create more chaos, fuel on the fire, and pain
Yeah.
and disconnect. So a big lesson is keeping our mouth like zipped closed. So one thing
There's
I've
this
been learning, like I like to like here's a little tip or practice or tool for people who are listening. Okay, when you're listening to somebody else and they're talking, um, you can either arrange like 5 minutes talk time for people to get things off their chest on like difficult topics that usually people interrupt, butt heads, and don't really listen to each other. You can arrange like 5 to 10 minutes talking for you, 5 to 10 minutes talking for me, or you could simply say, even without saying anything, just quietly listen to them when they're talking. Somebody with an area of contention or conflict, and when they're talking, you just say in your mind, "You're good. You can figure this out. You're good. You've got this. You can figure this out. Like you're really good, lovely person. I love you. You can figure this out." Say stuff like that, like you're great, and I trust you to be able to figure this all out, what you're going through. So you're kind of like mentally, quietly sending them good vibes, and you're trusting them, and you're supporting them, and you're not interrupting them, and just deep down try and listen as much as you can. So that's like a very, very, very helpful tool that we can do and remember and remind ourselves of.
Thanks for sharing that. That's awesome. It reminds me of I was just listening to this Rasta grandma lady saying to her grandson, "God gave you two ears and one mouth, so you should listen twice as much as you speak."
Yeah, that's. I think there's like potentially partial like physical truth to that. Like it makes a lot of sense. It
Hmm.
does,
Hmm.
because if
Yes,
we had
and
two mouths and one ear,
there's so much healing just in listening, you know,
yeah,
that can be done, and you can learn a lot more about someone and understand where they're coming from if you take the time to slow down and hear them, and hear their story, hear what's going on with them. And you can do them a
big
great
time,
favor by just being present. You don't have to fix it. You don't have to, win an argument if you're in difference. Just be in support, and that that can be more beneficial. In Buddhism, they're always talking about what benefits human beings, not necessarily what makes them happy. They value benefit and freedom over happiness, because
mm,
happiness comes and goes, and oftentimes we have our happiness connected with external circumstances or projections. So
yeah,
I,
attachments,
I
yeah,
I know I keep going back to Buddhism. I just see the way all
yeah,
for me. I've been digging back into it. I was planning on being a monk at a certain point in my life, in my early 20s, and I was studying it in college, and studying the sutras and studying Sanskrit and everything, and I just started studying it again recently, and man, there's it it just cuts to the core of so much of the healing that I see that needs to happen, right now,
mm,
to really uh, enshrine uh, gentleness and a caring, nurturing attitude, to sacralize that culturally. I think, you know, I look at like the Tibetans, for instance, and they were the Huns. They were like the most warring, violent people on the planet.
wow,
And
mm,
with Buddhism, they became the only culture that I can think of that has had a peace for more than 1,000 years, and
yeah,
a government and a way that's truly geared culturally around altruism and benefiting other
mm,
beings, you know.
mm,
So It's
That's beautiful.
I love that tool that you shared. I think that's going to be something that I'm going to practice. You know, and all these things are
Yeah,
just practice. We always, you're always going to screw up when you're practicing. So don't be hard on yourself when you do. But do practice. Don't be afraid to practice. Right.
yeah. One thing I heard recently is if you do fail or slip up or fall, at least it's a good sign showing that you're trying. And then you just like
Yeah.
get back up again, you know, and you keep trying. At least you're trying, you're making progress, and we learn from our mistakes. So many people say there are no mistakes, it's just learning experiences, if, at least if you want to
Totally.
use them as a learning experience. So, um, getting back to
Totally.
what we were saying earlier, I really want to add in this one other thing about like about choice or destiny and free will. I think it's very important concepts spiritually and for ultimate truths. Um, I like so when our soul chooses to come and have a physical body and a physical experience, certain things I feel are predestined and they're part of our life plan and life purpose to have like specific big lessons that our soul wanted to have by choosing our body, our parents, our culture, our society, and certain like big events. It could be like a few of them in our lifetime only, and these things are out of our control. Like, and it may as a physical human, they're out of our control. So, for example, like we may have like our parent might die when we're 5 or 10, and that could be designed and agreed upon as souls before we come to the physical, and that could really shape our life and our life purpose. That could shape us in the direction we go, what we learn, and how we help others in life, and a lot of our own lessons of overcoming maybe grief and loss and sadness or depression. And similar can be said about our overall general childhood. That could be like very specific, big part our soul chose. And then there could be like a car accident when we're like 15 or like a divorce, that type of thing. Or something like sort of loss of health, an accident, we fall off, like whatever, we have a huge accident, we become like disabled or like partially crippled, or even just losing our health. Like I believe my loss of health was probably soul plan too, and led me onto a different way of my
Hmm.
soul progressing and maturing in life. And
Hmm.
certain like a lot of relationships, or especially big ones, they're like soul agreements. Like they're not free will. They're gonna happen to us. There's gonna be magnetism or like chemistry or something drawing us together from both people. We get into a relationship and there's like a lot of lessons, and that's like a soul agreement. That's these big, massive, life-changing events and huge lessons and learning growth experiences. These are a soul's choice. It's and a soul agreements with other souls. But the nitty-gritty, 99.9999% of our own decisions and choices in life, they are our choices as a human. They come with our personality, our body, our history in the past, and who we are now and who we are choosing to become. While like society and our past influences on what we choose today, we still govern our choices, and we'll have to take responsibility for our choices and our words, our actions and behavior. And then we can look at our own like mental processes of perception, attitude, um, how we our perspective, our outlook, our overall beliefs. We can question them. That's our choice if we want to question them ultimately. Like it's not forced on us by a soul or another person. Hey, you need to like look at your beliefs right now. Is it true what you're thinking about yourself or other people? That's our free will now. So one of the laws of the universe is free will, outside of these soul agreements. So it's really important to realize we have free will, and we can either grow faster or slower, or make things do whatever we want, make things harder or easier. We can Our intentions are our thoughts, our intentions are our choices. It's all based on our free will. So what I want to say with this is animal souls, which this kind of ties back to the animals as well as the humans. Some animal souls come down and they know they're just going to be slaughtered. They're coming down to a concentration camp or a particular farm in a particular place, and there's literally, based on who's there, there's no real chance of them like being saved physically in this lifetime. They're going to be slaughtered, and that's this lifetime for them. And then their soul goes back and they're free in heaven or spirit, like the spirit world again. And the same can be said about humans. Some humans are to come down, they'll have their life. It could be like a short life. It could be in the womb. It could be they die in a car accident at age 3 or 5 or 1 or whatever 10. That's part of their soul agreement with themselves, and they're going to learn lessons that's valuable to the soul. or it could be that they could be like child trafficked. They could go through torture and like misery or concentration camps. And again, this is the soul. They're gonna basically 99.9% or 100% die at the end of it at a younger age. But for the for a huge majority of both animals and humans would come down, but there's a chance to be saved. And this is bearing influence on other souls in human form, like other humans being able to save you. So, for example, let's say your child, a lot of people who are like child trafficked or child labor sweat camps, they're not necessarily destined to be die that way or to be like in a sweat camp forever. Like working for like pennies in the third world, like 12-hour shifts per day or whatever, or 16-hour shifts. Um, there's a chance for animals or humans in very dire predicaments, like kidnapped or captured or in an animal farm. Basically speaking, people out there using their free will can say, I don't want to be contribute to this anymore. I don't want to feed money and empower this industry, even if it's like not even if it's an organic free range farm, or there's still like a lot of things are done non-consensually, leading in premature death and and family breakup of the parents and etc. and the children and the brothers and sisters. Or like, so our free will in the nitty gritty day to day actually is powerful. We can choose. We don't just have to use an excuse saying, "Ah, well, they're an animal. Their soul like chose to be killed." Literally, you could save that soul in the physical body to say, "I don't want to keep contributing to this." And if more of us choose this with our free will that we've been given is essential, this doesn't have to keep happening. So they're not destined or to be doomed and to go down this fate of torture
Yeah,
and death, ultimately with no
and
chance of
we
rescue.
we
We
could
save
change
like
our
child people.
sorry, I was just saying we could change our agricultural systems too. We could change our political systems, our economies. There's
Yeah,
so many things that we could change to reappropriate their uh, their point of focus being to benefit beings
yeah,
instead of being focused on sort of the greed and corruption and economic value will be more enshrining the inner value. Like Milarepa talks about all beings are golden, and that
hmm.
the gold,
That's nice.
the true gold, is the gold, the light that's inside of us. There's literally light. Each cell makes zero point 0.7 volts, and you have 50 trillion of them, so that's 3.5 trillion volts of energy and golden light running through you. And that's
Yeah,
what we need to value more and more, and not just us, but all the beings, the trees, the plants, the animals.
yeah, yeah,
Owen, Owen, I'm
yeah.
gonna have to wrap up here pretty
Okay.
much right away. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we go
Well, yeah, just
or
super
finish
briefly
it?
on previous point, like if an old lady falls down or someone is drowning, like, or we don't just say they're let them go,
It's
they're
too
doomed.
bad.
Like we can choose to help and save. And outside of that particular points, which I feel is fulfilled, I just want to say, happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me to have a talk and chat. Love to connect with you, and lots of love to everybody. I'm pretty sure and hope it didn't come across as like trying to be mean. I'm just diving deep into the mental processes and spiritual bypassing and double standards, and just so only with the intention so we can all have a happier life. And like one of my friends said, that in 150 years, whether or not you want to believe this, she asked her guides with this. She said 150 years time, the 99% of the world will be much more on a plant-based diet where people aren't
I
kind of
I
taking
look at
advantage of animals. But at the same time,
I even look at from when I started, how many more people are plant based and vegan now than when I started, like 16 years ago. It's a world of difference. So at any rate,
it
if
is.
I really appreciate you coming together with me today and visiting with me, Owen. If
Me
anyone
too.
wants to connect with Owen for a consultation, his link is in the description. And hope everyone got some value from this. I'm sure you did. Sending you all the blessed, and have a beautiful day, family. God
Yeah, and
bless.
I do just one last thing. I have two like
Yeah.
gift books in the community, a school community. I have like my two most recent books, Self-Awareness and Living in the Now, which is about like thoughts, mindfulness, and living in the now. And also another book, Heal Yourself, Your Life, Relationship, Family, and Ancestral Line. That's another gift book, and it's free to join. No credit card details needed, just name and email address. And I also have 2 free video courses, and they are spiritual practices made simple and practical, and also life, death, and the meaning and purpose. Life, death, and the meaning and purpose of life. So those 2 video courses with numerous videos are also a gift, as well as a monthly gift workshop for you to receive. So I offer that to come join me, become part of the community. So yeah, sometimes I
Is
forget
that
about my
available?
gifts.
Is that at your website? All
Yeah,
of that?
it's my. I can give
Okay.
you the I can send you the link and you can put it down below.
Okay.
I have
Yeah,
another
I
yeah.
I put the Owen Fox website down
Dot
there.
org. Yeah,
So
that's more like describing
yeah.
my coaching services briefly, but the other one is more like my new project, which has all the gift freebies and
Okay.
blessings, and we can all come
Yeah.
together
Please
and be
send
part of
that.
a community as well. So it's really nice. Yeah.
Okay. Great. All right,
Thank you,
family.
Jesse, for inviting me.
Have a great day, Owen. Much love.
Yeah. Lots of love, everybody, and Jesse, much love. Have a lovely day. Bye bye. Until next time.
Peace.
See you. Bye bye. Peace.